bring the special order, meeting to order for the special meeting on Tuesday, August 7th for the Water Committee. And if we can start with roll call.
I'm so sorry. I truly thought we were doing just a workshop and not a meeting today.
Well, there's going to be a workshop, but we have to still call it over.
Has to be within a meeting, I guess.
Not that I know.
Here.
Okay, here. Here.
Sean Bar here.
Sean is here.
Lou is here. Lou Ennis is
We
here.
are all here.
Bob's here, yeah, 5 out of 7. We still have
Dee's not here.
one vacancy, and we still have one, which will be a vacancy very shortly.
What, is there any status on, Ralph?
No, I have not heard from them. Okay.
That's
Do we have any minutes that we want to approve? Or we want to defer them until the next meeting?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we're going to defer the meeting minutes from the last meeting since we're doing a workshop today.
And that was June, I believe, wasn't that our last meeting?
Mm-hmm. It was.
Can I have a second on that?
I second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Okay, so that's approved. We'll just move on to the next item. We have a couple of audience members here. Did you come to?
Not that anymore, but you saw it online that there was a meeting.
Yeah, it's, you know, we can take comments or questions from you if you like. It's primarily today's special meeting is to do a review of the results of our
Water,
survey, yeah.
that's what we're interested in,
I
yes.
mean, if you want to sneak up and sit there, be closer, you can listen. I mean, instead of sitting back there, I don't expect many people. Okay, so at the moment, you have no other comment.
Back in the shadow.
Thanks for coming. Well, thanks.
We don't want to be called on.
I'm Dee Monroe.
Hi, I'm Barbara Shapiro.
Barbara. David, pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for coming.
Don't feel bad. They didn't even expect me. So.
She's a member.
What area do you guys live in?
Wheeling Road,
Oh, okay. North or south?
north.
North.
So we have no comments from the audience at this point. Okay, old business, we're going to roll into the survey results, which will be part of the workshop. New business will be the analysis of the survey results, which again is going to be part of the workshop. So we can defer that discussion as part of the next meeting. That's okay. Anybody have any objection? Maybe a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so that, we'll defer that as well. And I guess the next thing is to just adjourn the regular meeting and go into the workshop, would that be correct?
You can do that, or you can just continue going.
Discontinue? Okay.
Yeah, there's really no distinction between
Okay.
this special meeting and your workshop, so.
Okay, all right, so then let's go into analyzing things and having a conversation.
So you want to start?
Well, we have our maps, and we have our results. I guess anyone can interject what they want to interject as we go along, but do you have your survey numbers, the raw numbers broken out here?
I don't know that I have that.
No, I don't have that either.
Is that email?
Yeah, it was something that was sent out prior to this meeting by email. I printed it out.
All of the,
You sent that, Bob?
I got this from you guys and I forwarded it out. Yeah, I mean, if you want to make copies and bring
I got
back
this.
extra copies.
But I
Yeah,
can.
this didn't come from a meeting.
No?
We have this, right?
See that
here,
either.
Want me to make copies of this?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
That I didn't see.
I got, did you see this?
That was the original.
Yes,
right?
this, yeah, mine is done
Yeah.
on Portuguese landscape.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's clear that our 2016 initial, as we knew, so that data result is just with some color, it's dramatically
Yeah.
different. Now, obviously, this one is filtered though. This one is filtered as well, but we ran a filter, right? So we ran a filter here on who had water that was too hard, is, damaged or.
Yeah, I mean,
damaged.
essentially what we've got before us is the 2016 map
Mhm.
and the 2018 map. And you can see a big difference between participation 2 years later.
Right, 'cause this is, yeah. That's
And
why.
then the other is a water quality map, which basically shows people who have bad water in their wells and a difficult time getting it to,
That was a specific answer to,
Water quality.
the letter C on yes, so if they wanted well water, or they wanted city water, the core reason was because it was too hard, discolored, damaged, so.
That was the dominant.
Yeah, that was the dominant one, so that's what the filter is on this one. Which you're seeing a pretty good, heat map there, south of Palatine, north of Camp, McDonald, Wheeling, and Elmhurst, right?
yes,
In this area.
yeah, the majority of the people with difficulty that did respond is obviously, as you said, it runs between Schoenbeck, Wheeling, south of Palatine, to Willow Road. And then the other corner is going to be the section or quadrant between 83 and Wheeling Road, bounded on the south by Camp McDonald.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And if you look at the 2018 as well as the 2016 responses, obviously you're seeing a lot of green of yes, we're interested in city water. That's at all, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, a lot of the greens do match up with the red,
Right.
I mean, doing it quickly.
Right. Which again makes sense.
Interestingly, though, I'm looking at a few where they want the water, but they don't have a problem with, says, yes, we want water, but they are not on the quality as being too hard list, for example.
Well, I'm noticing that there's a lot of green on both sides of the pond, on Wheeling between Elmhurst and I'm sorry, on Willow between Elmhurst and Wheeling, and that corresponds to the bad water situation also.
Mhm.
You look at all the red on the water quality, and then look at all the green on the survey results.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, that's probably the most correlation.
It might be
So I just have a bunch of copies, so we can hand them
So
out then.
that,
Oh,
so
so they're all the same.
Yeah.
I think so.
There's a copy for everything.
And you would expect that's where the water would be bad, because it's close to the water table, but sometimes the closer the water table is to the
This is
surface.
what I have, I'm sorry.
Or the worse it is.
Honestly, I don't know what I have here.
Oh, it's fine.
Well, I got something no one else has.
Yeah, I mean, and from, the work over the years on the SSA creation sleeve, I forgot the gentleman's name, I believe he was a speaker at one of our forums, who was trying to, start up an SSA in that area. I have to check my notes. But I guess it's no surprise, right? That's the area that's been
I
looked
think
at
you're
for quite
referring to
some
Bob.
To what?
Is it Bob? He comes in with
No,
the
what's his
bad
name?
one.
No, he's a, give me a second here. I have this. I apologize if I can't find this, but. And ironically, that area from an SSA standpoint is the closest spot for any city connections, being coming from down Wheeling Road.
Right.
Where there currently is water from your SSA. And that's ironic, convenient, I would say.
What are you looking for?
What you're talking about.
Oh, okay, so on here, Kay, on this one, we've got the water quality. So we were matching this up with
Okay.
2008, this is 16,
Mhm.
so 18 is this one. So we were kind of discussing what we see here matched up with here. People who want water in green that said yes, how they line up with people who have bad water.
It seems to be that area there on either side of north and south of Willow Road by the slough or pond or whatever it is it's called. There seems to be a lot of, almost everybody who said they had bad water that and turns around and is in favor of city water, which makes sense. And there is a lot of, there's a pretty good concentration on both sides, probably the highest concentration, at least in terms of a grouping, either side of Willow at that slough, that's where most of it is. And again, I think you would expect that because I think the closer the water table is to the surface, I think the potentially lower the quality is. You want the water, you're going down 100 feet for water, it's probably pretty clean.
Right.
If it's 10 feet away from a slough, probably not so much. My question is, how many responses did we have total?
419 total.
And what is that compared to what we sent out as a percentage? Do we know that offhand?
It's about, well,
How many households?
I thought it was 8%.
3,000, I think that's 3,000.
I think you might be right, it's probably around,
That's 3,000 total and 419 responses.
I want to say it was somewhere around 10% this time versus 20% last time. But the 20% last time was because we only sent the survey to the 2,000 single families.
That's a good point.
This time, we've gotten,
Well, 419 and the 3,000 is 14%.
You're right, though, is we did also send it to people already on water.
yeah,
Maybe some of those didn't respond, so that can sway. It's not apples to apples.
yeah, we're not exactly doing apples and apples because the single-family residences in 2016 were the exclusive poll, and we did 839, and that was approximately 40, close to 40% of that
Okay.
mailing.
Which is
But
showing-
now it's diluted because we did a mailing to the entire Prospect Heights area because we included water costs.
Yeah, right.
And if you look at that number, the response 419 would only be, less than 10% of that population.
It's half of the 2016 poll.
But, one thing I don't know if we have it in here is how many people responded within the single-family homes. That's, we didn't go that far in digesting the numbers. What I'm saying is the responses we've gotten, perhaps the concentration level, we didn't actually count how many people responded
The folks that,
within just the single-family area. And these maps are predominantly, I think, single-family.
62 responses, if you look in the middle bracket here, of only if you already have lake water, so 62 of the 419 were already on water, right? So those 62 people definitely didn't respond in 2016's poll, right? So people that are on well was actually 348, 47 people. Less than half.
And maybe I'm simplifying this too much, but out of everybody who responded to this survey, 90 people were interested in establishing Lake Michigan water, 162 were not, 37 not sure. So even if you add if all the not sure's were yeses, the no's still win. What does that doesn't that tell us?
I think for the responses it does. And on the other hand, it also, this shows a little bit of where there could be some higher concentrations of poor water, which is in what area we were talking about.
Right.
Which again, it adds data, right? it's then up to the folks in those areas to want to come together, since there's a common theme, to start that process, which again, that's an area that's, I think, been worked on.
Well, here, let me clarify something. This item here, I think this was the draft prior to the final, and this one would be the last one.
Oh,
So we
okay.
can probably disregard this and just use this sheet.
You know, the other thing I noticed too, is if you look at that area on either side of Willow Road, whereas every place else there is green and red kind of mixed in, this is mostly green and there's very little red in there. And that's one of the few places that I'm seeing here where there isn't red matched in, mixed in with it. So, there's some blues, and that's fine. But, I'm looking at this whole thing here, and if you look at 2 or 3 blocks either side of Willow Road, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 no's, and you've got to have 3 times that many yeses.
I also think that area, I can't say this out of any great knowledge, but I think that area is regentrifying. A lot of building is going on in that area. A lot of new construction is going on in that area. So, that could also lend to people not being satisfied with the way things are. When
Well,
you-
I think you're right. I think it's new families moving in, because I think I'm probably one of them too. I've been here for almost 20 years, and I have a well, and I have a problem. But I grew up on wells, and I lived, before I moved here, I lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I had a well, so I'm used to a well. But as people, if I had kids, it might be a different story. Or
Well,
if I was a young couple.
If you're looking through the responses, I spent a lot of time on looking at what people were saying, and a lot of the responses were that we live in an older community, and they're on fixed incomes. And there's a great fear of adding any more to their household budget because they're not able to afford that. I think if Prospect Heights was to offer, and maybe that wouldn't even be it either, but I did see an awful lot about the cost.
Yeah.
I did see, and again, without the cost, I saw a lot of things that, I love my well. I don't like city water. I don't like the problems that they're having.
Don't want to pay for it.
Don't want to pay for it. I don't like the chlorine that's in it. I don't like the bacteria
Well, it takes
that's
it out of
in
your
I
control.
don't- Right. So this kind of puts it, it's something that you have control out of. Everything in this whole entire world that you can control, it's what you ingest or what you hope to ingest. So, I think it's a hard sell.
It's expensive too, but only.
Well, there's so much misinformation too. There's people walking around saying, if you want city water, it's gonna cost you $30,000 by the time you're done. Well, that's not true. Of course, it's not gonna cost you 10 either. It's gonna be more than that, but there's a lot of that. I think there's some scare tactics. I think there's people, you're right, on fixed incomes who don't want to spend, they don't want $8,000 a year or $4,000 a year added onto their taxes for the next 5 or 6 years. Who does? And if your well is okay, then why are you, we use the thing, well, if you have to go over 20 years and the cost of replacing a well is this amount of money. Well, I've been living in my house for 20 years, I've never replaced a well. Maybe it's tomorrow, but as of right now, it's not. So that comes into play too. I think cost is, I wonder actually, even if the city of Prospect Heights said, you know what, we're gonna bring water in for you, don't worry about it, we'll pay for it, we'll take care of everything. I wonder if people still wouldn't not want it. I don't know that for sure. I don't know if I love my well as an excuse for not wanting to spend the money and not coming out and saying I don't want to spend the money. I think there are probably people who are just like their well, like you said, they
They're-
have control over it.
Clearly, that's what the data
They're
suggests.
okay with it. And all of those places where you don't see people responding, and according to what I was reading, they're just tired of hearing about it.
Right. I've been hearing about this for 40 years, nobody ever does anything, all you do is survey us to death.
Mm-hmm,
And in some respects, that's
yeah,
true.
right.
I mean, this is our first time, so I'm not taking responsibility for surveys
Second
from
time.
10 years ago. Well, second time. It's my first.
Well, it does come down to motivation and having leadership. I can tell you that from experience. And a lot of the problem becomes, those adages where people say ignorance is bliss, I think that permeates society in general. What's gonna happen is, if it doesn't affect you, you're not worried about it. When it affects you, that's when you start worrying about it. So a lot of people don't have a problem, so if they don't have a problem, they're not gonna fix it until they have it. And I think down the road, as you're going to start seeing, on a small scale, people have problems with their house where they rebuild. We have an ordinance now, you cannot build a house in our community without sprinkler system. And I stopped in to see this house being built just down the road here on Camp McDonald, just past the fire department, our police department. Well, actually, both right there. And I stopped in there and I talked to the contractor a little bit, and they're having a heck of a time putting in that sprinkling system. They've got a lot of delays and it's been very costly. When people start seeing that, it's gonna affect the community and the cost of living here.
Is that a dry system up in the attic?
I don't think it's a dry system, I think it's a wet system, from what I
How does
understood
that
from
keep it
him.
from, where are they storing the,
I
water?
didn't get into all that, but he
A lot
said
of
they're
times
having
if
a hard
if they're
time.
worried about it freezing, they'll
Yeah,
put it in as a dry system, and then it can't freeze, and then you're basically, I guess, throwing dirt on top of it.
well, the guy I was speaking to, I can't say whether he was the I don't think he was the general contractor, but he was delayed during this process. He was just, because I went there, just talked to the owner about something.
Well, you gotta have all that stuff in before you do drywall, everything else, so it could have delayed everybody right on down the line.
Yeah, well, that was part of the issue, and all he knew was that they were having difficulty installing it. The water made it difficult, because if you're using hard water that's going into that system, that's gonna become an issue. You're gonna have to replace parts on your sprinkling system on a regular basis. You have to test it. I know myself, because I run my well for my sprinkler in my yard. And every couple of years, I've got to replace the fixtures in order to use that well because of the water. So that ends up costing an extra $100, $200, even though the water's free, the maintenance is not, and the repairs are not. So these are hidden costs that you don't always see. And that effect is a micro effect on individual cases. And I'm anxious to find out what's gonna happen up here with the condominium that burnt down. I have no idea, I don't know what the building had, I don't know if it had sprinklers,
I don't believe it
I
did.
don't believe it did, I think it's an older structure.
I heard somebody say that it was grandfathered back in, that they wouldn't even have to put sprinklers back in even if they rebuilt it.
That is not true.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe that either for public
Because
safety.
it would kick in what is it, 50% or something like that?
51% of the structure would have to be damaged, and
Yeah,
that's pretty much been established already, so.
yeah.
It's a brand new construction.
Are they
so-
gonna rebuild?
Huh?
Are they going to rebuild, do you know?
Everything that they've been saying is they're gonna rebuild.
Well, hypothetically, if they were to rebuild and they fall under the new ordinance, here's what's gonna happen. I'm willing to bet all those people that own in there have insufficient individual condominium coverage. And I'm willing to bet that the condo itself, master, probably has insufficient coverage because the replacement cost will not include the sprinklers. You have to purchase a separate endorsement for ordinance coverage,
Sure.
for upgrading your ordinance. Every homeowner there, unit owner, is gonna have to kick in money on a special assessment. They're not gonna have money there either. It's gonna be a big mess for a long time. I don't know, I'm anxious to see what happens there and how this all happens and so forth. Because
Now, there's water main adjacent to them,
That
correct?
was on city water,
Oh, it was on city water?
absolutely.
But just not sprinkled?
Just not sprinkled, because it was way before,
Wow.
was
They
50,
didn't
60
have
years old.
fire doors either.
No
There
rated
was
doors?
nothing that, for a multi-tenant
Yeah, usually have like
unit,
1 or
you
2
have
hour doors or something.
something that will shut the fire down.
Well,
And
it just
it-
keeps it out. for an hour, or
Right.
or whatever it is.
But, you know, it's a little off topic, but that
Yeah.
is an effect, when you have new ordinances, how it's going to affect the future of the community when it comes to rebuilding and replacing structures or bringing new homes in and that sort of thing.
So the sprinkler system, that's on single-family dwellings, because that place over there, it's just a couple of doors
As
down.
far as I know, it's
Single-
any new structure.
Any new structure.
Or any remodeling over 51%.
Yeah.
Why is that, why was that,
State of Illinois.
what's the state?
Yeah, see, we can't, because we don't have eminent domain in the city, there's a limit to what we can do as a city when it comes to ordinances. Generally, they're gonna follow whatever the state law is.
What is
Or
eminent
county.
domain? Is that the
The right to kind of govern yourself, I think, is,
is that the
you
home
can-
rule?
Yeah, it's like home
yeah,
rule.
same thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, eminent domain's not actually the proper term, but
No,
home rule is
I
correct.
know what you meant.
Yeah,
Sounded
but D is correct, D is correct in what she said, she corrected me and. that's
I
all
just
correct.
didn't know what the word eminent meant.
Eminent domain, for the most
It
part,
sounds scary.
Goes beyond.
It used to take land
Yeah, that-
for public purposes.
That's
or
a
something
much
like
more
that.
severe term.
Yes, it is.
You know what, let's, I'm just gonna go down this survey, and we can talk about each line and discuss that, because otherwise we're gonna be kind of off topic a little bit. Okay, so, under the first question, we asked, have you ever tested your well? And the responses are 261 people said yes, and 82 said no. So that means 343 people out of 419 gave an answer. I don't know what happened to the other 50, 60 people. But of the people who said no, 32 said never thought about it. It's too expensive. 4 people said it's too expensive. I don't know where or what the test score was. 35 out of the 82. We had one person who said, it's not my responsibility, the city is supposed to do it. Which, you know, considering it's a private well. And then lastly, there's other, which I don't have it broken down as to what some of the other responses are.
There was a line though for people to write in.
to write, yeah.
Yeah. I have all the individual items here. And I don't know if I had converted this to a file for everybody. I think I had converted it to a file with the comments and emailed it to all of you.
Oh, that was the one that,
Where I pulled comments out. Oh, you got yours, okay. All right, you printed them.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah, so what I did is so that we can all share the comments where there were pertinent comments. And I didn't do every one of them because that'd be a lot of paper. So I tried to give good samples and enough so we can get a flavor of what's going on, or people could give us a more in-depth knowledge of what's going on here. Now, out of the people who said yes, they do test, 193 people said they test for natural bacterial contamination. 141, which is still more than 50% of those saying yes, did test it for hardness. Same thing for dangerous environmental pollutants. And then there were 50 other answers as to why they test.
and those are probably people who test when they're either buying or selling their
I
home.
recall a lot of them were that. New home buyer just moved in.
and with that being said, there's a lot of people that, I found in reading this stuff is that, they have made mention that their water is crummy, but they hadn't tested the water in 15 years. I mean, why would you do that? Why? But unless we're not doing a good enough job in providing info on how to get your, because I mean, if your water's crummy, you want to find out why.
Right.
It's not just crummy because I mean, at one time, if you lived there for 35, 38 years, at one time, it must have been okay, and
I think it's one of those things, as Bob was mentioning, is if it's crummy, you would think, well, it's broke, we need to fix it, but until that happens, there's no one's being proactive on it, which is human nature, right? If it's okay with any of this stuff. And I was very surprised by that too.
sorry about it.
That's okay. I mean, it all comes down to the same issue. It's individual choice. People have their own well. It's their risk. Until something happens that affects them, ignorance is bliss, so you just don't know. You know,
Or maybe they think nothing could be done about it. I don't know.
maybe I was brought up wrong. I always think there's always something you can do if you just do it.
Yeah, there's always something.
I mean, that's just me. I just don't get it.
I
So
think you were right when you said before, if there's nothing wrong, don't fix it.
yeah, I mean,
And that's with anything, not just water.
No,
right? It's,
I think that, people are like me. I'm cruising along, my well's working great. I haven't having a problem with it. Under normal circumstances, if I wasn't part of this, I would probably say, what, leave me alone.
which I get, right? Like you're empathetic to that.
Yeah.
Why would you want to?
Why would I want to pay money, a lot of money, to get something that is maybe not even as good as what I already have for nothing?
Do you drink it?
But at a dollar a gallon, it's never going to add up to $20,000. I mean, I'm just looking at it as a justification.
$20,000 for what?
Well, if you were going to bring in water, by the time you're done with bringing in water and paying for the tap fee, you could be at $20,000, right?
Well, if you're talking for but it's amortized over the 20 years. If you're still there, you may not be there. You sell in 5, the next owner takes over the property.
Right, but it's still $20,000.
Yeah.
I mean, and where I could, that's a lot of, that's 20,000 gallons of bottled water.
Over 20 years.
That's a
Thus,
1,000 gallons of bottled water a year.
That's
still a lot of
presuming
water.
that
I'm
the
sorry,
water
I
price
asked.
doesn't go up. But see, you're
You said you wanted
presuming
to
the
go
water
up.
price never goes up.
That's true.
Like in our case, we're halfway through, 5, 10 more years, we're fully paid for.
Right. But then you got a water bill on top of
Yeah,
I think that is kind of.
But I don't have a maintenance bill.
No, no, I know.
have, my power outage isn't gonna affect me.
it. That's the big one.
I've got pressure there, so there's a lot of benefits.
I'm just playing devil's advocate,
No,
that's all.
absolutely, there's two sides to every coin.
One thing I think is a little deceiving here is that because people were able to answer this, they could answer both A, B, C, and D if you wanted to, correct? So there's potential that there was, like on the second one, if no why, that only 35 people answered that question.
Right, the answer, you gotcha.
It's not, you don't add that up, because 35 people could have just answered all 4 questions.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's maybe a little less even of a participation than we thought initially. I'm not sure how we would figure that. You'd have to go through the
Right.
response, but.
How often do you test? Weekly, nobody does it. Monthly, we got 2 people that said they do it twice. Or do it monthly, I'm sorry. Yearly, we've got 85 people, and other 167. Other could be quarterly, could be semi-annual. So at least yearly is 35% of the people that do test.
Is there any direction on how often one should test the well? Like from,
It probably depends on how bad it is or how good it is.
It's according to Illinois State Water Survey, you're
Right.
supposed to test your water every year.
every year?
Usually if I'm not mistaken, it's in the fall. And
Oh yeah, after all the snow and stuff.
I think
No,
so.
that'd be spring.
Fall
Well,
and
it's
spring, yeah, after and before.
Right, because again, this is data collection for
Fall or spring,
for
I'm
the
sorry.
benefit of the community and, identifying potential areas for an SSA and then also folks that want to be on the well, it's clear that people aren't testing to the amount they should be testing. I think that's a big takeaway, just for that data.
I think that goes along with what we've been talking about, though. The well is, it's
Nothing's
okay,
happening, I
it's
don't-
all right,
Yeah.
I don't need
I'm
to
not
test it, I
sick,
don't need to
yeah,
do anything, just,
right.
you know, if the pump goes, God forbid, I'll hire somebody to come and put a new one in, but,
Right.
you know, it's working great.
Which again, yeah, and there hasn't been any cases of, not that I know, I suppose, over the years of people's health with the wells. I don't know.
No, I don't think
but
so. I mean, it seems like if it were,
That would be
you would
talked
hear
about
about it,
pretty
yes,
heavily,
you would hear
sure.
about it.
Well, isn't it, I don't know, when we do articles and things, wouldn't it be a good idea to tell people how often they suggest? I don't know if it'll do any good, but.
Right.
Well,
I think that's back to
we have-
just
Do we have that in the
nature.
water committee information?
Yeah, a lot of what we're discussing here has been added to our website.
Mhm.
And again, it
Comes
comes
to
to
action.
action of the people who want to take advantage of what we've put in there.
Correct.
Okay, would you be interested in establishing a Lake Michigan water system? So we had 120 yeses, 181 noes, and 48 not sures. Considering there's 419 surveys, we're looking at about 46% people that answered said no. A little around 32% said yes.
We don't have 2016 data, right? We did say it was
Very
slightly
similar.
It was very similar, right?
I mean, it's within.
It was 55% no.
55
For
number.
2016.
55 now. Yeah. Yeah.
It still bothers me that there are 32% of our neighbors that are screaming for water, Lake Michigan water, and their needs aren't being answered.
Yeah, that is the predicament, because you know, again, it's a majority and minority issue. So from a majority standpoint, it doesn't look like, you know, you're gonna be able to get water for the people. There's no practical way of doing it, except through SSA, where you know there's a clear majority that are willing to do it.
But is that the only way? I
Unless-
mean-
Unless somehow we were to get a grant that says, we're gonna put a water system in Prospect Heights and it won't cost you anything. Like,
There's
I
a
think you still
fellow,
have people who wouldn't want it, though.
well, of course you're gonna have people that wouldn't want it,
And
but
for
I
the
mean,
reason
that we were
for
talking about.
the areas that they're saying,
Well, I thought that was the idea behind the survey, was even though we knew that people were predominantly against it, based on
yeah.
Previous survey.
people who come to our meetings, we were hoping to find blocks, right, to be able to establish an SSA. And I'm looking at this, and the only block that I'm seeing here is, like I said before,
Mhm.
both around that pond.
Yep.
Yeah, you got 3 quadrants there, and that's it. The 2 quadrants immediately adjacent to Palatine, and the 1 quadrant between East Willow and Camp McDonald. I mean, that's essentially where it comes out.
It's funny, the same folks in 16, you know, you can match those green blocks up. They're
Same
obviously
thing.
adamant about it, yeah, but, yeah.
And then you've got giant blocks of no's,
Yeah, south of Camp McDonald.
right?
so I mean, I read it somewhere in here, a fellow making a suggestion about, is there any small communities like ours that have obtained water, Lake Michigan water at a reasonable cost? I don't know.
Are you
Define
referring to the
reasonable.
infrastructure, or are you referring to the
This just fella
delivery?
just said, can't we find some smaller communities?
What
in-
did they do?
What did they do, you know, besides doing an SSA? There's another fellow who's a CPA, he's got an idea.
I read that.
What was his idea?
Who knows, you know, maybe there are other avenues that can
Well,
be
we looked
taken
into it. I mean,
besides the SSA.
Grants and loans.
I mean, I'm as confused as any one of these people when you start talking about funding and grants and all
The
this
the
other
reason
stuff.
I'm, the reason I'm smiling is because, like, that one gentleman you're referring to there, and his comments are just not realistic. I've been through this whole process, and I've looked at the finances and the options. I would have loved to have found another alternative. One alternative was to get a private system, where we would own it ourselves. It's a lot harder to do it that way. We thought about that in Lake Claire, you know, then the city would not own it, we would have owned it. But it's a harder approval process, and goes through a lot more steps.
Plus you've got to manage it.
And you gotta manage it and maintain it, yeah. So we could have become our own little community, kind of like Rob Roy, you know, they've got some things there, right, that predominantly, like your water system now, you have one water bill,
Right,
Right.
but you're still a municipal
right,
system. It's not owned by Rob Roy, right?
right.
Yeah. But like in that case, you know, we had an association, we could have certainly said, okay, we're gonna make the Lake Claire Water Association, we're gonna provide a private service.
Yeah, we'd have to put
in
up
our
our
own
own,
infrastructure.
Yeah, your own tank and tower.
I mean, all those things could have been done, would have taken longer.
But you had the block, though, the whole idea, the whole problem is you can't get a block. Whether it's private or
You know, I don't think it's a
or an
matter,
SSA.
I don't think it's a matter of being able to get a block. I think it's a matter of people wanting to put in the time and the work that it takes and the involvement. You know, nobody wants to do anything that's gonna
It's a
take
lot of
more
work.
than, I think you ought to do it. How many times people just, even here in our, I don't care where you go, everybody says, yeah, you ought to do this. It's always you ought to. What about, I'm going to?
Yeah.
That's what you need, the I'm going to. I'm gonna put in an hour a week. That's all it would take.
Right.
Or even 2 hours a month. Come to a meeting once every couple of months and see what's going on, you know, create an organization. It's not that difficult. It really isn't, but people won't spare the time. They want someone
So
else
there
to do
are
it.
alternatives to an SSA.
Well,
Privatized.
yeah, private would be one alternative. Or if you-
Would a private ownership be able to apply for a grant?
I think they
Well,
mostly go to
They couldn't
municipalities.
get governmental grants if it's private,
Oh,
because you're basically, you're gonna own it privately. I mean,
so you wouldn't be
like
taxed on
Amazon,
it?
Amazon's not getting a grant. What Amazon got to build whatever they build is tax benefits.
If you made it not-for-profit, maybe you might
So,
be able to do something.
Would we be able to do tax benefits if you were to do a private system?
Well, you're talking about a nonprofit corporation versus a,
Oh.
you know, I mean, you're not bringing jobs in. Why would we give you a tax discount?
Right.
She's trying.
No, no, those are good questions, but that's the reality. When you look at some financial things, where's the cost benefit? Who's gonna control it? You know, we're connecting to the city's water system if you're putting in a private one. You don't get a tax deduction like you do now because it's not private. It's a public utility. People can hook onto it, you get tax benefits. You put it on your property tax. So really, that makes the most sense.
A lot of this comes down to 1970,
What's that?
when the city said, no, we're not interested in water, when it was coming in initially, wasn't it?
Yeah, because
1970?
primarily they decided they didn't want to be part of the Northwest Water Commission.
Right.
So they missed a great opportunity, you know, to be part of that and have all the infrastructure done
And now it's, you know, it's twice as hard, not just to put an SSA or some kind of a grouping together, but where are you gonna get it from? And how much more expensive it would be because we're not part of this organization.
well, that's for the connection points and stuff like that, but I think some of that can be overcome these days because a lot of that's old. And I think at some point, you know, if the city wants to grow financially and reduce its dependence on these little taxes and the difficulties we have now, eventually they're gonna have to be able to bring a water system in
Well, just for the commercial value of
That's
it.
exactly it. It's not so much for the individual homeowner, but for the commercial value.
And the tax base.
Yeah, that's how we get all our pretty much most of our revenue is tax-based. I mean, we don't get anything in the way of property tax. People think the city of Prospect Heights costs so much money in property tax, but they've never looked at their bill to figure it out.
Yeah, it's all schools.
It's all schools, yeah, it's like 65–70% school costs. But the schools are for the benefit of society and the greater good. Well,
That's
a
right.
water system is for the greater good. You know, if you don't have kids in school, you don't care about the schools.
Right, but somebody was paying for you when you were a kid, even though you weren't, you know, I mean, it's not,
Well, they did in grammar school, but not in high school, because I went to Holy Trinity, a private school. So I didn't use the tax money then, and we didn't have much money then. I paid my own way with a job through college.
but it's off a generation,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I mean, who's paying for it?
yeah.
Who's paying for the kids going to school now? We are, but we don't have
Well,
any kids in school.
again, you know, we're kind of getting off the, it's part of the deal, the cost and things, so I think we should get back on track here. If you don't agree with getting a water system, why? Well, 149% of the, 149 people stated it's free. So that's always the thing, the cost. It's safer, 65 people out of 200 and, like, there's how many people?
Well water is, that response was well water is safer than a well? I mean, a well water is safer than
65
municipal
people
water?
think well water is safer
Than a
than
municipal water?
a municipal water system. Even though
I don't know.
so
where
many
that comes
people
from.
don't test it. You have no idea what's in it. My well would never run dry. 44 people think they're never gonna have a problem drilling another well. And it'll never be polluted or contaminated, so 30 people believe their well could never be contaminated.
But they believe that a municipal water supply could be.
Yes.
Again, I think maybe it's out of your, it's a control thing too, I think. Again,
I mean, this is what they think.
Yeah.
These are their answers.
well, that's why we've got a map full of red instead of a map full of green.
And then we have 104 other, which we would have to dive into the comments of what the other might be. And if yes, why would you want a municipal water system? Yes, answer A, I don't like the taste. So 72 people that want a water system, it's because of taste
They don't like the taste of their existing well
of their
bores.
existing well. Keep in mind that 120 people said they would want a well, or want a water system. So roughly a little, 70% sort of feel, or 60% feel that it tastes bad. Water pressure, 44 people say it's because the water pressure drops. It's not consistent or something of that nature. So 44 out of 120, or roughly a third, had issues with water pressure, which is true. $113 out of, I'm assuming 120, because I would imagine people unwell we're not answering this question, but almost 100% of the people say it's too hard, discolors, damages clothes, property, wears out, plumbing, ruins fixtures, etc. 84 people feel that there's a problem because of, if there's a power outage, they have no water.
Well, that's a genuine fear.
Yep.
Oh, it is. I think that something's coming, like a power outage or something, a bad storm's coming, I fill my bathtub up with water. Just so I have something to flush the toilets or whatever I need to do.
25 people have had to dig a new well, and it was costly. So they don't want to do that. And that's an issue too, because throughout our community, you have places where they have a difficult time digging wells. one extreme case in our neighborhood, they dug like 5, 6 wells, and every time they dug, they got nothing but sand. They couldn't even take showers at home.
It couldn't go deeper?
They tried different areas deeper, and no matter what they were doing, you know, they had no luck. He dug like 3 or 4 wells while he lived there.
Wow,
I can't remember the fella's name.
Oh, a nightmare.
yeah.
And again, these are not everybody, but it does happen. And if you're the person there, you have a useless piece of property pretty much if you don't have water. Fire safety concerns. 48 people feel there's a fire safety issue. And 54 people don't trust wells. So roughly half the people that want a city water system don't trust wells, whereas people that do have well, 30 out of 100, and I'm assuming 80 people, think it'll never be contaminated. Any thoughts?
Again, I go back to the people that, you know, it appears the people that are on wells that there's a great deal of them that are okay with it. I say leave them be. Let's
I think it's the devil, you know.
let's
You know what I mean?
concentrate on doing something for the people that are miserable with how they're living and how they have to live, or how they feel that they
Well, like
have
that
to live.
gentleman who came in with the filter. What was his name? Paul?
Bob?
Bob.
You're talking about Bob, he kept coming.
Yeah, coming, showing the filter, there was, you know, within 2 hours or 2 days or something, it was totally clogged up. Those are the kind of people that need water.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Now is, you know, is that a matter of, you know, do we propose something to city council and say, hey, these are special cases, people need to be financially reimbursed through city funding somehow to make their life livable, or is that not a responsibility of the community?
Seems like that's something he would do.
Hmm?
I mean, I would do, if that were my well, I would do that. I mean, I would have come up personally and said, hey, I can't, you know, look at this, I can't. live like
Yeah,
this."
but, you know, standing before the city council, you think they're gonna say, yeah, that's a great idea, we're gonna give this guy money and fix his well.
Well, I would just say, you know, what are the,
Because everybody chooses to have a private well, so now the people with the private wells, what are they entitled to?
well, but I think what Dee was saying, there's people out there who need water, want water, but don't know how to get it. And there's people who want to keep their wells, and you've got, you know, that's obviously a conflict there. You've got people who don't want to do anything, want to leave it, and then you've got people who are kind of scattered around who want water, but how do you do it unless you got a giant block of people right at the edge of a water main?
Which can't, right?
Well, there again, it comes back to creating an SSA and organizing a group and following through.
Because I feel like the biggest takeaway from this recent data, which echoes the 2016 data, is what we started with, which is that area around Willow Road, the pond, absolutely, has the most, at least, engagement in the survey, right? Not everyone answered,
Yeah.
but the people
I
that
think
are
so.
answering, clearly they're answering because they want water.
And you would expect that to be the worst water.
And historically, I think it has been. Again, it's not up to us as a committee to do that. It's up to them, knowing that they have their community around them wanting it, to take action. And we have everything listed on the website how to do it. We have someone, Bob, that has done it, that'd be more than willing to help at least articulate how to do it. But it's action, right?
Well-
That's a success, and it's identified, but it's not on us to do it.
But maybe one thing you could do is make all those people who want water, or municipal water, aware of the people around them who want it.
So this is not, this
No,
is there really, can't make
It's
this
still a
public?
draft, because actually, and I'll have to speak with our attorney on that, because you can specify people's properties,
Right.
and this was not, I worry about privacy issues.
Exactly, and I think that was in
Yeah,
16,
because
we were
if-
talking
Yeah,
about that.
if you're the only person on your block that doesn't want water and everyone else does,
Right.
you know, that can cause an issue or vice versa.
Now, right,
But don't you think that, you know?
those people should be made aware that they have a.
They may just think that I'm the only one.
So I don't know if there's a way to articulate the area, or, well, clearly it was just
I'm sure they're
articulated.
talking to each other as well.
I would think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Is that Ward
it's not like it
5?
used to be.
Is that a part of Ward 5?
Which, the
The
Hillcrest Lake
area
Slope?
around Hillcrest, yeah.
The 3, maybe 3.
Is that 3?
Yep.
Let me check up there.
It's
Oh.
3.
Is it 3?
Yeah, it's 3.
Hi, Kurt, how are you?
Thank you. Okay, so going to page 2, we're getting into the cost factors. Now, the people that could answer this could be almost anybody, really. It's not just the people who want water. So with the numbers being distributed as they are, there's no way to actually get definitive as to whether they answered more than once or didn't answer, or totaling this up. You know, to do some of those things that we're talking about to be more finite would have been an even bigger, more specific survey, and would have been even much more difficult to get responses. I mean, it was, you know, we had a lot of questions as it was. But it does give us a little insight into what the thinking is. So from a cost factor, we put 5 options on there. I would never hook up no matter what. In other words, I don't care if it's free. 123 people answered that they would never hook up under any circumstance. So I can assume that means the people who have well, which is approximately half the people. Because 260 said that they have well, and 261 that they have tested their well.
Well, it also goes back to, would you be interested in establishing Lake Michigan water system?
Yeah.
The people who said no to that are probably all same thing.
Yeah.
Up to $1,000 a year, 104 people would agree to it. So perhaps some of the people who did not answer, I would never hook up. I mean, the people who have well, 104 people said, well, maybe it's not such a bad idea if it's $1,000 a year. Up to $2,000 a year, we had 38 people said they would consider it. And up to $3,000 would be 14. Up to $5,000, we got 8 people willing to do it.
What does your, the Lake Claire assessment, what's the term on that? For the tax?
It's a 20-year bond.
It's 20 years, so you pay it out over 20 years?
Yeah. And the bond we got at the time, the rates were relatively high. I think it was around 4.5% to 5%.
So $1,000 a year would pay for your system, right?
For most homes, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's based on property assessment.
Okay.
The bigger homes pay a higher percentage than the
Sure.
smaller homes.
But on average, $20,000 would take care of the average home in terms of, does that include connection fees in your
Well,
assessment?
actually, the cost per home before financing, when we did ours, came out to roughly $14,000, $15,000.
But then
If we
you
had
had
paid
connection
up front, we could have bought it for $14,000 per household if it was prorated.
Plus connection fees, right?
Well, the connection fees are separate.
Okay.
So that would be your cost depending on how far you are from the connection to the main. And the connection fees at the time ranged between $2,000 and $3,000 one-time cost.
Yeah, so you were talking about maybe 17, how long, 10 years ago? 15 years ago?
2008, February.
Okay, so 10 years ago. So 20 is a probably, so $1,000 a year would probably take care of the average home right now, including a connection fee.
Should
very
It's
close.
reasonable,
Be
yeah.
very close.
Depending on size.
Yeah,
So in
on
this
average.
case, the cost of getting water is based on your property's value?
No, the connection. I think.
Here's, I'll try to be brief. This has to do with property tax in general. The government creates the budget. The budget, let's say, is $100,000 for that particular location. And let's say that you have 100 houses in that location, but they're different sizes. So your 100 people owes $100,000, but the people with the bigger house are gonna get assessed a higher percentage of that $100,000 than the people with the smaller home. So people that might, because typically what they're expecting is people with smaller homes are gonna have less population and less use. So if you have a home with two bedrooms, 1 bath versus a home with 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, 1,000 square foot versus 2,000 square foot, you're gonna see a difference in assessment, but you still as a community pay $100,000. So, you know, your cost is the same, but you don't prorate it.
Okay. Okay. I didn't realize that. I thought that it was like a blanket when you take out this bond, it's a blanket thing.
The
no matter
bond-
Whether this guy's got, you know, a 2,200 square foot house and this guy's got an 1,800 square foot
The
house.
bond is a fixed dollar limit. It's a loan. A bond is really a loan when it comes down to it. The
Okay.
community borrows the money, and they call it a bond. And the people that buy the bond get paid interest for giving you their money privately. It's a financial instrument, that's all it is.
Okay.
So yeah, so it'd be
So
different
this is-
depending on
On your usage level, that's basically what it is, right?
Yeah, it's
You're
it's
assuming.
like every other tax
Well,
that we
your
pay is a
assumed
percentage.
usage level, so what if you've got 2 people, you got this giant house and you
Should have
got
bought the
2.
giant house.
Yeah.
That's
You
exactly.
got 2
Well, it's
people
based
living
on-
in that giant house
And then
and
you got- you
they're
got 20
water
people living
conscious.
in the 1 bedroom.
Right.
And,
So, yeah, when it comes to finances and
That's
taxes
a
and
good
property
point.
taxes, there's really no perfect system, but that's what they do. They utilize it based on that.
That's fair. I don't know how else you could do it.
Same thing if you have a vacant lot. I mean, if you have a vacant lot, you're not being assessed for any property on it, then your tax bill is gonna be a lot lower than one with a structure on it.
Sure.
So then you don't pay as much. And anything that is nonprofit, you know, with respect to like religious institutions, they can hook up and it costs them nothing. They don't have to pay any taxes from the property tax base. Wow.
Well, public entities too, right?
Yeah, public
Park
entities.
districts
Yeah,
and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah. So
I know they
anything-
don't pay taxes.
Yeah. So, you know, this number here where people say that, you know, they go up to $1,000 and then they, 2,000, it becomes a dramatic drop off. Realistically, you know, 1,000 to 2,000 a year means most people would probably be okay with it if they understood what it was really gonna cost them each year as opposed to large numbers.
I do agree with that.
And now the next questions are for people who only have water. So 73 people total answered yes or no to the already have water portion of the survey, which is kind of a small amount considering that I would think that's close to like 2,000 residences. I'm not sure how that broke out that have water already.
We did or did not send this out to work havens.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
everybody,
they got it too. right?
everybody got,
They just didn't respond.
the response was very low.
Okay.
So 42 say yes out of 73 that it's worth what they pay for it. 31 say no, it's not worth what they pay for it. So if they don't think it was worth what they pay for their water bill, if not, why? The water cost, you know, satisfaction in it, is the service worth it? So the water cost is too much, so that's why they're not happy. 25 out of the 31 are separate cost, which is likely, yeah.
It's like a
it's
fail.
common sense, yeah. Service is unreliable. Only one person out of 31 that doesn't think it's worth it thought it was due to poor service. 13, other cities have better overall value. Now that's an open-ended question. You know, what is overall better value? What makes it better? It's better quality water. The service is more reliable. You know, it's kind of open-ended, but 13 feel that other communities have a better value. In other words, they're probably cheaper, which is what it comes down to. And 3, other, which we don't have their comments. And everyone, regardless of yes or no, whether they have water or not. This is regards to our forums that we've run the past 2 years. So it's almost even. 50% of the people answered, 196 said yes, and 202 said no.
And this is where they were aware that we were even having.
That we were even aware that we have ever had a forum the last 2 years. Would you attend one in the future? 294 out of the 419 that responded, roughly 3/4 said, yeah, they would attend one in the future. And approximately 1/4 would not. And then of those that said they would attend one in the future, June, well, then we passed that, 25 said June, 23 July, 40 August, 62 September, 82 October, 172 no preference. So if you were to interpret the meaning behind that, September, October, as you get closer toward October, November, people seem to have more free time rather than summertime. Which is where, we were kind of thinking anyway, September, October.
Right. Remind me first, our first forum was in November?
No, it was in,
October, second one was in
Oh.
November.
The second
second one was in December.
Or December, yeah.
December.
Oh, maybe the first one was, maybe it was November.
Was it right before Thanksgiving?
November 12th,
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was November 12th. The second one was on December, like, 3rd or 2nd.
Okay, yeah, yeah, it would have been, yeah.
Well, one of the things we were interested in looking at because of its poor turnout at our second forum was it dates, it was it subjects, right? So I don't think it was the dates.
I don't think
Maybe
so.
the December might have been a little late, but the November obviously more
You know,
turnout.
I think when you get in when you get in that period between Thanksgiving and Christmas, people's time is a lot less available. You know, they're shopping, they're visiting, they're getting ready for things.
But it's also showing that a lot of people, those that responded, had no idea we were having draft together, which we were curious about. But a lot of people didn't, much less people showed up to the forum, even though they knew about it, right? What was that number? I had 166 here. How many people knew about the forum? What's the yes on that?
Who would say that?
This is 166, this is old
This is
though.
old.
Yeah, yeah, I'm up
Don't you
there.
have this one?
Not in front of me.
Oh, share that.
But I'm just right, you're going with the numbers. So it was 100,
What is your
196 knew about the forum, and 202 did not know. Well, even out of 196 that knew about the forum, first year we had 60?
Yeah, right around there. And then we had, second year, we had 8 or something.
Right, so,
We don't
That's a
know
little
why,
off.
but I don't know whether people got everything they wanted out of the first one and
Right.
decided they didn't need a second one, or it was too much of a duplicate of the first one, maybe, and I think that's where this next section here is going.
Well, yeah, that's what we were hoping to do. I think ultimately it was to maybe try one more time using one of the following topics so we can go down to there. From the date,
Yeah.
we can start getting
Sounds
into
good.
what topics, subjects, types of speakers, vendors, government agency would you want to see and hear from at the next water forum? So again, of the 419 responses, A, Baxter Woodman Engineering representative to explain previous and current cost estimates for a municipal water system, why the system has to be designed a certain way, and for a question and answer session. We had 170 people respond to that. Would be an interesting topic or guest. Next would be 182 people, actually more people than the first answer, want to hear from an engineer, treasurer, other officials to explain if we could obtain financial assistance which could offset any costs for a water system. How and why of the water allotments and water system master plan discussion with questions and answers. We had 171 people. How would we lower the cost of buying water through another source now or in the future? D, 148 respondents. Can the city of Prospect Heights establish a well testing program with or without financial assistance or a taxing ordinance?
178.
148 people.
48.
You have a copy of this?
No.
No, I'm sorry. Well, regardless, I mean, you know, we can
I
find
think
copies, because
we've
we're gonna
got-
have a
yeah.
I
follow-up
can make-
meeting.
Yeah,
I
I
can
think
make
this
copies
is,
I can scan.
I know I've got them in
it,
my
send it out.
email archives, I could resend them. E, the economic impact of not having the entire city connected to a municipal Lake Michigan water system. 165 people were interested in hearing about that topic. So, you know, roughly speaking, those 5 topics take up about a third or 40% of the total respondents. They're kind of equally spread. There's really no glaring disinterest on any of the top 5 or top 4. Top 5, right? All
no, I
5.
think everything is screaming from the citizens of Prospect
Give us
Heights, that the
information.
Prospect Heights government needs to step up.
Yeah, except for the fact that the majority of people don't want it to start off,
Well,
don't want water, according to that first,
and that's
right?
fine, but there are other people that do.
No, I
And those
agree.
people that do are screaming for help.
Yeah,
Well, think about this, you got 120 people that said, yes, they want a Lake Michigan water system, 48 not sure, that's 168.
it's almost half,
Yet,
we're almost the same.
yeah, but all these topics are greater than the number of people who want to be on Lake Michigan water, so what does that tell you?
They want information.
But that one question is, it's about the economic, can the city of Prospect Heights establish a well testing program? So someone that wants to stay on well would have probably answered that one.
Yeah,
Right, 148 people who would want to stay on well or on well would want us to know about that, and you've got 181 people who would have said, no, I don't want to be on a water system.
well, at the very least, we have topics for the next couple of years of water forms,
Well, I think,
if that's where we're headed.
I just believe that there's a lot of people that are just like me, very confused over this whole thing and need like basic information, something that
They wanna know how
is
to-
real
How to
simple.
move on.
I think, you know, cost keeps coming up, it's all about cost.
Okay, it is.
Yeah.
But,
Maybe-
but
maybe-
you've got the 1,000, you've got people there that said that I'd be willing to spend $1,000 a year, and we've already established that for the most part, on average, that would take care of a municipal water system. So, I mean, that's a good thing.
My thinking is, the first 2 forums we did were majority information about well
They
water
were.
improvements and all that stuff, and you saw the second year how much it died off.
Right.
Maybe our focus needs to be on, let's go over what it really costs today for, you know, what the impact is of having a Lake Michigan water system, how we can obtain one, what the financing options are. Maybe we get a bigger turnout.
Well, that's the majority of the topics for the, it's all municipal water.
Which
Except
again
for, except for the well testing, the city starting some sort of a well testing system, the topics are all municipal water topics.
I'll tell you
How
what,
much
we're gonna
does it
get a
cost?
turnout because the people that want city water will show up and the people that are against it will show up too because of the fact that it's a form about bringing water to the city. So it would create dialogue.
What I'm looking, see, the thing is, what I'm saying is, you got 120 people that said they definitely want a water system, but every one of the other topics regarding the cost of doing water exceeds the number of people who want the system, which tells me that those people have an interest in learning.
Sure.
Sure.
Information.
Even though they said, no, we don't want the water system, that maybe, you know, that
Maybe-
probably takes into account the people who aren't sure.
That may,
Correct.
that also may be why they don't want it, because the, not
Fear of the
knowing.
unknown.
Right, the fear of the unknown, not knowing is, I don't know what it's gonna be, so I'm gonna have to say no. Because I can't commit to something I'm not sure of. or I don't have enough information.
Yeah.
I think there's a nice balance here. I think I don't know what the Baxter Woodman thing is.
Well, they're the ones, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they're the ones who did the latest water system study, correct?
Treasurer Tibbetts would know for certain, I think
Yeah,
it was 25.
I think that's in our, on our website, we've got all those studies, and I think the last one that was done was
All that's on there.
12 or 13 or something like that, 2012 or 13 was the Baxter Woodman study, I believe.
I keep hearing about Baxter
Yeah, they're
Woodman
the
study, but
predominant
they're,
engineering firm that's done most of the work within the city, and they have all the background and data already there at their fingertips. I mean, that's what the city's always relied on. So when we did our work with our SSA, we interviewed 2 or 3 engineering firms and ended up going to Baxter Woodman to do ours, because it just made more sense, and they know what they're doing, they're gonna get the job done, it's gonna be done correctly.
They don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah. You're not gonna run into a lot of unexpecteds because they didn't know, oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
It's a much more professional organization. Were they the cheapest? No, but cheaper isn't
You
always
get what
better.
you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Well, you would know that, it's your field, I would. Why am I telling you this?
and the city engineer and treasurer, to be honest with you, I think people wanna hear them so that they could put their feet to the fire.
Well, if we're deciding that the main topic of our next forum is going to be municipal water, then we can, if we start right there, then we can decide what kind of topics we want to do. We have to talk about when we're gonna have it, because actually we're kind of, I don't want to say we're running out of time, but we don't have a whole lot of time. And that if we're going to do this in November, first of all, we have to get a venue. I don't think that'll be a problem, but just setting the whole thing up is going to be, it's gonna take some time, and we have to pick a date or at least a couple
Well,
of
the
days.
October we thought about, that would have to be like the first, second week early. I mean, first or second Saturday, whatever there are in that month of
In
October,
October.
because I would not be able to attend otherwise.
You're not around in November at all?
Yeah, I mean, like the second week of November.
Are we getting
But
too
then you're
close
getting into
to,
Thanksgiving.
well, I think if we were in the early part, if we were looking at the 8th, 9th, I think last time we had it on, if I'm not mistaken, we had it in November 12th, I think the first one.
Yeah, so if you were talking the second Saturday of November, that would work for me.
So maybe I could at least, I mean, even though we don't have details figured out, maybe I could at least talk to the park district and see if I can get that date held, or I don't know if she'll be able to tell me yet. But if we can get that then at least we don't have to worry about it.
Well, we can get tentative date, because I think November is where it's kind of free, whereas October is a toss-up depending on the availability.
Yeah, in December, I don't know whether December had anything to do with the turnout, but let's not take any chances.
It might, yeah.
I think the flexibility would be to have a couple dates, October and the November 2nd Saturday.
So give me some and let me, before our next meeting, I'll talk to Christina
We can,
and find out,
Well, yeah, because I mean, this is what we're trying to figure out.
part of this is, okay, let's see what the response is about the forum. We feel like the forum is a necessity or a good idea this year based on the response. If it's specific to municipal.
November 10th. would be our-
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking. When is our next meeting going to be?
I don't know, we haven't decided yet. If we were gonna follow, it'd be 2 weeks from now, but I don't know, are we gonna have
So
another
they,
one?
I mean, we've got another 10 years where we have
It's-
to pay.
What do we normally go with?
Third Saturday,
Third Saturday of August.
and that would be,
Because I thought maybe, I'm trying to remember, but didn't we say we were going to have the special meeting and then also have the August meeting?
well, that would be a week from Saturday, and then we're gonna meet
Because that's our regular meeting.
17th, right?
We were going to use tonight to kind of just go through the numbers and then we can start talking about stuff at the next meeting and formalize it. That was my thinking.
Yeah, that
Okay,
makes sense.
so we don't have to decide on a date tonight, we can
No,
do it at our
you can do
meeting.
the homework.
So we just.
Well, I'm gonna pick- Get a couple of days here and just
Because I
talk.
think you had done some of the background already. If you find your notes, you'll probably see that somewhere you had talked to Christine possibly October and said it depends on if there's weddings and stuff and then
Right,
November opens
but
up.
she could never tell me until, last year, she couldn't tell me until September because she didn't know, by that time, they know what the fall schedule is for the golf course clubhouse, for the banquet facility. So she was hesitant, and we talked about the possibility of just going ahead and picking a date and having, if we had to pay for it, if for some reason somebody was wanting to book that, we would already have it reserved and we would pay for it.
So we're gonna keep our regular meeting for
Okay.
August,
Next meeting is the week, is the 18th.
because I thought that's what we agreed to.
Yeah, no, that sounds right.
And at that meeting,
At that time, I think.
we're gonna wanna establish what topics we're hoping to shoot for and a couple of potential dates,
Okay.
so that by September,
Our September meeting, we have it down, but they,
because notifying the public is not gonna be a big deal as long as we're a couple weeks out.
but
And
if
if
we don't
need be-
decide, if we don't pick a day until the third Saturday in
Bring to the
September,
table.
and the day turns out to be, I mean, one of our potential might
It
be
was on the road. you
middle of
guys
October, that
had
gives us
the
3
power
weeks.
to
That's not gonna work.
maintain pressure.
So you're talking about.
So we'd have to pick I think we should really, do we want to pick November 10th? And we've got money in our budget.
So I don't think people are.
We don't have to tell her this, or maybe we will have to.
We're willing to pay if it books.
Right, if it books, we're willing to pay and find out how much it is. I think last year she said it was, I forgot what it was less than
All right,
$600.
then, we'll defer to the side once you bring the data back on to the next meeting. And then I guess we'll try to pick a date at that next meeting.
At this,
Next week.
a week
which
from
is
Saturday.
A week from Saturday.
Okay,
And then create the topics, and go out to try to find the topics, so that by September we know if we can commit or not commit
yeah, good idea.
Yeah, speakers, right,
speakers.
for the time.
And we have the dates confirmed.
And I suppose I can start doing some background checking, as to what we're gonna do, or
So do you
somebody
want
else
me
wants
to
talk.
hold off on talking to Christina, or you want me to talk to her about?
No, talk to her, get a date.
I'm gonna
thing.
try to get November 10th.
The thing is to make sure we have dates, then the speakers can be filled in as we go, but as long as they're along these topics.
Right.
But I think we're gonna have to tell
You
her,
don't need to get a.
unless she's already got things booked, which she may have a few dates already booked in there for weddings and things like that. She's gonna say, what day do you want? I'm gonna tell her November 10th.
Yeah, tell her November 10th is a day we would want, Saturday the 10th.
And can I tell her, if she says, well, you know what, I can't really commit to that until I find out whether, and we're gonna get booked with weddings, can I tell her, well, how much is it? And if it's $600 or less, we'll pay for it. Can I do that, or do you want me to hold off?
He doesn't want to spend the money.
Well, let's see what she tells you in 10 days, because we can give her a deposit if we have to.
Yeah, I don't think she.
Bring back the information,
Okay.
we'll decide that day.
I will do that. I think personally, I know it's not my money, but for peace of mind and to get the date that we want, $600 is, I think, inconsequential. If it means the difference between having a successful form and not, otherwise if we're not spending it, then, and we don't have one, then we wasted.
My guess would be, Baxter Woodman could provide somebody for free.
Yeah, well, I would think they would come, I mean, I don't know that Peter would have whoever the village engineer would probably.
It'd be difficult to get the village engineer. And the village engineer wouldn't actually, without a plan in front of,
Sure,
without a plan in front of him, the
sure,
village engineer would really be wasted.
yeah,
Well, then, maybe we get somebody Baxter Woodman there.
yeah, just maybe the process and how they came about with all their figures.
We got to find, get some cost factors and go over that. We can figure the topic and get that there, and it's gonna be a lot of Q&A after.
Who else was on this list? Baxter Woodman, city engineer, cost of buying water through another source, I don't know who that was.
No, I had mentioned that I gotta get out of here pretty
Okay.
soon,
Well,
so
I think
unless there's
we're
something
done.
else we can.
Issues?
Oh, yeah, that's the girl that put together all the data and did all the work.
What does it cost to have them do a study or mapping out of structure. Am I saying that correctly?
It's already done.
That's the Baxter Woodman, that's the last one.
Dexter
The
Woodman
last
has the master plan.
Right,
Yeah.
master plans, which we've seen that.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of maps in there also, I believe. Those
Somewhere
are-
I
they're
have,
such
I
small
have a
scale.
master plan, because when we were doing this, I had to make sure it integrated, so I've got stuff like that in my home.
Well, it's in the, in that document. The problem is it's 8.5 by 11. It's this with water mains and laterals, and you can't read it. Even at 11 by 17. you can't.
So when you create an SSA, obviously the cost depends on how many people are in the SSA and all.
Is there a 24 by 36 copy of that?
So, is there any way to estimate the cost of
Okay.
bringing water to the city?
That is, the master plan, I
That's what
think
it
the
is.
whole city is like.
So why don't we know the
$58
cost?
million.
We do know
Why am I
that.
missing this? Oh, that's what it said, it's
Something
floating.
like that, 47, 58.
Yeah, there is a cost in there. Peter said he can get a 24 by 36 copy of that blown up, maybe mounted, if we want to use it at our forum, because then you can actually get up there and look at the map and make some sense of it.
I like that. I think that'll,
Is it possible to sit more informally like this than just sit up there? I think we talk to each other better sitting at
Well,
a
this is
table
being,
like this.
this is being televised, you know.
Yes, I know. You can still sit at a table.
Yeah, well, it's, yeah, then doing this,
Right,
This is-
right, this
yeah.
is much.
I don't see why we couldn't do this on a regular meeting, it's just a matter of a microphone.
yeah. I like this too. I mean, it's more,
You've got two meetings going on at the same time. Very hard to
Steve?
hear.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we shouldn't really do that because it messes things up.
My apologies, I was getting some real
Yeah.
input.
Okay, so should we adjourn that for the next
well,
meeting?
okay. Do you know we're gonna meet a week from Saturday?
Okay,
The regular meeting.
with the goal
The goal is
That's
going
a
to
regular
be
meeting,
to,
Peter. We don't
I'm
have
gonna do
regular
some
meetings,
research, we're
special
going to choose a date
notification.
for the forum,
Regular meeting.
and we're going to choose topics, potential topics, speakers, and things like that. So we're gonna do that a week from Saturday.
okay. Saturday is
What'd you say,
the
what?
Saturday, so
18th?
it's like the 18th?
18th.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so anything else? We've got that all squared away.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Someone second that?
I second.
All in favor?